Hello and welcome to Everyday Oral Surgery. This is your host, Dr. Grant Stucki. I am an oral and maxillofacial surgeon practicing in Denver, Colorado. The goal of this podcast is to connect, learn, and inspire. In this podcast, you'll be hearing from OMS surgeons all over the globe discussing ways to improve the practice of oral and maxillofacial surgery. Most information shared in this podcast will be based on personal experience and opinions, so please supplement what you learn here with approved research studies. Without further ado, please enjoy today's episode. All right, welcome to another episode. Today I'm with Dr. Dexter Mattox and Jake Stucki, both oral and maxillofacial surgeons. Dexter, thank you for joining us on the podcast.
It's always a pleasure to be here, Grant. I think this is round 3. I love it. I'm a big fan.
Dude, that's awesome. Dr. Jake here as our co-host. He can potentially ask some good questions because we're going to be talking about some intense technological things here.
Yes, I'm here ready to go. This episode, it's been a long time in the making in the sense that I've been under Dexter's tutelage remotely, hearing all the things he has to offer, all the different techniques and workflows he's using as he set up his practice. And all the time I'm just amazed and, trying to implement those things. So I thought it'd be great to have him on here and talk a little bit about one of the kind of unique things I think he's doing that could be potentially a game changer for a lot of other guys.
And Jake, just for the backstory for everyone, even though I've said it on every one of them, but now he's finally on the podcast with me, which is such a treat, such a treat. So Jake was my intern. I've said it every time. He was a savant. He was crazy. He's the best intern ever. I was lucky. I mean, I had fantastic interns. I was very lucky to have a great team of interns and everybody else. And we still stay in touch. So that's good. So yeah, I'm excited to finally be on Everyday Oral Surgery. Not only Grant, but also Jake. So this is a treat for me.
Going to be awesome. So yeah, in prior episodes, Dexter, you've talked to us a little bit about some of the technology and systems that you got going on in your practice. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about your X-Guide workflow. Where would you start us off on that topic?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed using the X-Guide. It's not been without its challenges, I will say that. But it's definitely something that's a very routine part of my practice now. I would say probably 80 to 90% of my implants are placed with X-Guide now. I still do some static just to kind of switch it up because probably honestly I need a second X-Guide machine. And so I don't really want to move it from room to room, even though you can. It would just be, it's not a petite device, I'll say that. But backing up, I started my practice about a year and a half ago after working a couple other situations, and then just started just a de novo practice, just kind of hung a shingle, which has been great. Anybody who's interested in doing it, strongly recommend it. It's been really fun. But I was really looking at that time of the biggest complaint that I'd gotten from referrals, having worked in a couple different private practices before that, was just like it was a slow process. Like it took time to get a consult, and then you have the consult, and it took more time to get the surgery. And I just hear like a lot of frustration with the timelines, like you couldn't get in very quickly. And so a big part of my practice philosophy is trying to be super, super fast with everything. And a big part of that is actually doing a lot of online qualifiers before we see patients. So basically trying to expedite the intake process. We call them virtual care coordination sessions. So I have like virtual care coordinators, 2 of them, and they just make sure that we have everything we possibly need. Health history, if they've got stuff going on, we can send for consults before we ever see anybody. And just kind of to make sure that they're reasonable candidates to come into the clinic. Are they going to be able to kind of pay for things? Are they expecting an implant to be $100? And just making sure they're reasonable candidates. But to be able to do that, and I'm doing more same day because I feel like that's kind of, we live in this sort of Amazon Prime reality. People want things very quickly. So to do that, I needed a way to be able to provide. I'm a big believer in doing guidance. I mean, it's just objectively better. My hot take with it, and it might be a bit inflammatory, it's just like the people who don't do it routinely are just not comfortable in that workflow or can't create the efficient systems around that, because guided is just objectively better. And it's not to say that you can't do freehand and have successful outcomes. Of course you can. But if you look at the data behind it, there's not really an argument to be made that guided is more accurate, whether it's static or dynamic or robotic or whatever. And speaking of robotic, I briefly looked at the Yomi, but the sticker shock is crazy with that. It was like 120 grand, and it just still seemed a bit cumbersome to use. And printing same day guides isn't really realistic. even with fast printers, by the time you scan, design, print, it's going to take too long. And so that's why navigational really jumped out as the clear best option for my to be able to kind of achieve the goals I was looking to do with my practice. And then there's two. Straumann's trying to come out with one. I think it's actually available in Europe, but there's Navident's system. It's the same people who do Micron Mapper. And then, of course, there's X-Guide. And I looked into both of those quite extensively. Navident looks like a very interesting system, but ultimately, X-Guide seems just to have a lot more users. It's just a lot further along, I think, in the process and the kind of development cycle. So ultimately, I landed on the X-Guide. So have y'all used the X-Guide at all? Maybe at just trade shows or Amos or something?
I haven't. I've seen the X-Guide at a couple different offices being used, but I haven't been through the entire workflow. Kind of seen videos of how it's used. While we're on the topic, maybe for some of the students who haven't heard of what dynamic navigation is, would you mind just explaining what the basic concept is?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's basically, there's freehand, there's dynamic, there's static, and then there's robotic. So if we're talking about navigational implant placement, it's using the core concepts of like photogrammetry. The core concept of photogrammetry is if they can have a very clear reference point, if you look at it simultaneously with two cameras, or maybe in the case of like iCam photogrammetry, they use four cameras or multiple cameras from multiple different angles, you can get incredibly accurate implant position or position of whatever it is, because photogrammetry is used like in mapping, it's a foundational concept. And so in navigation specifically, what you have is some sort of unit head. You can look up a picture of the X-Guide, but it's an arm with like a heavy base with a computer in it that kind of is pulled over the surgery field like an overhead light, really. And on that, X-Guide has some specific lighting on it. It's this kind of blue LED lighting, and then it has two cameras in it. And then what those two cameras focus on is these specific, it looks like these barrels, these small barrels. It's about the size of smaller, like a can of Coke or something like that, maybe like one of those mini bottles of Coke. And it has this, it looks like a QR code covering it. And so what you have with the navigational systems, and because Navident is the exact same, or there's other alternatives, is you have a one clip that's on the patient. And so we use it's like a little quadrant tray. It can also be drilled in for completely edentulous sites. You can put it on screws basically, but it's fixed to the patient. And then you just have to basically register it to the patient. So that barrel that's kind of sitting out here outside the mouth is then registered to the cameras, which is registered back to their cone beam CT. So when they're moving their head during surgery, it can keep live positioning of that. And then I have another one of those like QR code looking barrels on my handpiece. So it goes on the handpiece, and then so they can watch those 2 points of reference in real time. And what you have to do is basically measure the size of your drill. And there's like this other little QR code, little metal plate thing, and you put your drill on it, and then that will measure the distance, basically the length of the drill. And then so from there, what you have in the computer, like in real time, is the position of the patient's head as they're moving it through space. Also, it's tracking the position of my handpiece and then the drill. So it's really focusing on like the tip of the drill, like where is the tip of the drill? And it can kind of work backwards from there in terms of where's the position of the drill. And the data behind it is very, very strong. Block in particular has published multiple articles using the X-Guide. And interestingly, comparing it between him doing freehand, which I'm almost certainly not as good as Block. Let's be real with ourselves. And looking at basically the discrepancies between freehand versus static versus dynamic. And ultimately, static and dynamic are pretty similar in terms of outcomes, and both of them are significantly more accurate than freehanded surgery.
That's a good background. It makes a lot of sense. I did have a couple questions when you were explaining some of those things. So just because people might be wondering, so are all major drill systems compatible with the barrel that you're talking about? You just have to basically calibrate it to whatever drill you pick?
Yeah, I use NSK in terms of like the handpiece. The bits or whatever it's completely agnostic to that. You have to get like slightly different adapters. It's based on like W&H. It comes at standard, but they've got like a whole sheet of like if you're using whatever drill, they have got like 3 types of attachments because it just friction fits on that drill. So you can use any drill system with it.
Do you have to let it know what's the length of the burrs that you're going to be using? Because I know that some go to like 15, 18, 21, whatever.
Yeah. So every time when I'm using it, I'll put my burr on there. I'll be using Versa or whatever. Sometimes they have really low opening. I'll use these really short drills. So every time you're taking this, it's like this little metal rectangle, looks like a kind of a little bit bigger than a business card, thick metal piece, and it has that QR code field on it. And you put it right in the middle and you basically show it to the camera and it'll tell you like, okay, this drill construct is 23.1 millimeters. It's always interesting because there's like very slight variations between the burrs, even they're like technically the same thing. So that's like one of the very first step is to basically measure the length of the drill that you have in your handpiece at that time. So you can do it with whatever length, short, long, whatever drills you want.
Nice. Okay. It's got that little QR code apparatus to help you just do that quickly.
Yeah, you basically do it, or you can just say, because I'll usually most of the time have a second assistant that's kind of roving and they can do last drill length. If you know you're using the same drill, because sometimes, it doesn't always matter if there's slight variations between the 2 millimeter drill versus the 3.5 millimeter drill, you can tend to over drill length, right? So sometimes just for speed, I'll just make last drill length and then I can just go straight into the surgery site.
Nice. Okay. Unless you have any questions, Grant, I was thinking it'd be nice if you could walk us through, like, let's say a patient shows up, they're going to want an implant. Kind of how does that process go from then to getting it to leaving?
Yeah, and that's a big part of what we do because a lot of times they're coming in off of sort of like not really a telehealth visit, but just like a prep online meeting, telephone call. So then they're coming expecting, let's say we've got a number 5, we do those like constantly. And so they're going to come in. And then what we do at that time is do a clip scan is what we call it. And so it looks like almost like a half of a quadrant tray. Okay. It's pretty small. It probably covers 3 teeth or so. And so it has this little quadrant tray. And on that quadrant tray are 3 metal, looks like BBs out of like a BB gun. It has 3 metal BBs. And that is basically what your CT is using to basically triangulate that. Because if we're talking about like digital workflow stuff, we're always looking to triangulate. And so we just put that in the patient before we do the CBCT. And X-Guide does have it with like water bath. We pull that out and use like Regisil, occlusal record, like a hard set PVS basically. And then so we scan that in there and then take it out. Okay. And then they're scanned with that. The software just automatically picks that up. So what happens is now the patient's going to check out. Okay. So they're going to pay for the procedure. Simultaneously, I get my assistant just to export it. They'll pull it up on my computer real fast, and then I'll plan the implant position. I can do like a little quick digital wax up. I can put my implant wherever I want it to go in the planned position, take all my measurements I want because I'm like crazy with that. And then I'll usually I go talk to them and check out, kind of do like basically my portion of the consult. Do you have something, Jake?
Yeah. And then during this part, are you using like an X-Guide software to plan that, or you just exported some other software?
So you can use it in things like Blue Sky. I'll sometimes do full arch stuff in Blue Sky, and it can do other systems. Like it can just navigate. I'm not sure what all the different ones. I use Blue Sky and the X-Guide system specifically.
Okay.
The X-Guide's the easiest. They have they call it like Iconics AI, and they do like the segmentation for you. And it's just like really quick and easy to do, especially for like single tooth cases, which is realistically the majority of what we're doing. And so now that they're done with checkout, we use like little radios. I'll radio the team. I'll be like, okay, John Doe is exported. And then my staff will then go to the device and then pull up the plan that I just made. And then from there, seat the patient. We always do like little Paradex rinse beforehand, check they've had antibiotics preoperatively, do our timeout. And then they'll go ahead and register the system. So there are some steps with basically registering the system. You have to like register the handpiece. You put this attachment on there. I'll be honest with you, my team is like fantastic with this. I don't do much with it, but there's a few steps to basically register that little clip that you set up and then registering the handpiece. So the system's like ready to rock and roll. And then from there, it's basically seat the patient, numb them up, take out the tooth. Let's say it's extract immediate implant number 5. I'll use it like say, like let's bring in the camera and then put the sort of the X-Guide head over the surgery field. Lining up the camera is you just get the feel for it. Because the one thing, it's like I see it as a pro and a con. You really have to You can't block the cameras, obviously, and you can kind of set up the cameras. But what it does, which is I think is kind of cool, is it forces you to have really good ergonomics. I've talked to you a ton about this, Jake, with using prism loops and things like that. I'm crazy about ergonomics, saddle chairs, and stuff like that, which I know is big on Grant. Honestly, I got it from Grant originally, so it matters.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of the great things about the device is I am bolt upright, perfect ergonomics, shoulders down in my saddle chair. Because when you're making your osteotomies, you're looking at the screen. Like I'll look down, and it's kind of funny because like I'll have my loops on, and I kind of look around the loops to look at the screen, but you're looking at the screen primarily. Because once you register your drill, basically you test it. You'll test it on some teeth, and you can see it very clearly in the software if it's on or off. And if it's off, you troubleshoot. It's usually not too much of a problem, but there's a number of ways to troubleshoot it. But once you've confirmed the accuracy of it, basically, then you're watching, just as I'm watching the screen right now, I'm bolt upright. And it's funny, you do it, a lot of times I'm doing it like, remember doing crown preps in dental school where you're using two hands and making it perfect?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of times I'm doing that because I don't have to have a ton of retraction. It's typically kind of difficult for my assistant to get suction in there, but they figured out. They're used to it at this point. And I'll just have some gauze catching any fluid. And you can kind of just make your osteotomy normally. Some people don't use the X-Guide for like final placement. I do. I like to have measured depth. I'll kind of do final depth just by eye, making sure I'm like have my exact sort of ideal depth, 3 millimeters from a gingival zenith, things like that, either with a torque wrench or just like looking at it. That's really the full workflow. It's very different because it's funny. I had my assistants that were used to, we'll say, very traditional pathways for doing this. They were very thrown off by it at first. But as you've heard from me say a million times, Jake, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And now they're very comfortable with it, so I need to change it. But yeah, I mean, it's just the routine part of our practice now. It's like an important part is like making it the routine.
Mm-hmm. And as you're using it, I've seen the screen before, but basically what you're looking at like 3 different sections of the CBCT, all the different views. And then your plan that you planned pops up on there, and it kind of just shows you basically like a semi-transparent version of where your drill is, whether it's overlapping. I'm guessing there's like, does it pop up red if it's off course, or I mean, how does that look?
Yeah, so the main view you have is this kind of, think of it like as if there was like a bird's eye view looking down the barrel of your drill. You have your axial, your coronals, and your sagittal views of it, but I kind of just will occasionally glance over there. Your main thing you're looking at is your bird's eye view. And what you can see with that is basically, that's where like the X comes in. It has this kind of X marks the spot, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then around it, it almost looks like a gauge for speed on a car. I drive a Tesla now, so I don't even know what that looks like anymore. But an old-timey car speedometer. And it'll basically go to your depth, and it'll start outside of it. And then once you're getting into your osteotomy, it goes yellow, yellow, yellow. And then once you're basically at your depth, it goes green. And then if you go past it, it'll go red, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can see like the angle of your drill if you're mesiodistal buccal lingual within that. And then it has this kind of almost like 2 circles if you're looking at the scope of a gun. Like you line the 2 circles up and you get it right on the X where you want it mesiodistal. So the 2 circles overlapping is like your angulation. And then the mesial distal buccal lingual position is going to be that X, like if aim towards the target. And then you have that speedometer sort of green, yellow, green, red that tells you your depth.
Nice. Okay. That makes sense.
So you really you mostly look at this like one panel. You still have like the 3D view of where everything is in space. You have those other sections, which is nice because they segment out all the teeth and like all the bone and everything like that. Even can do gingiva. You can definitely add intraoral scans to it. I don't routinely because most of the time I'm doing X with the clip, but the whole other separate way is basically you do an intraoral scan and you pick 3 points on the scan. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like your alternative way of doing it. Like if they're coming back, their outcomes are the same.
How much does the X-Guide system cost, or the X-Nav?
So this is another reason why I went with X-Guide overall. Anybody who's looking to get into it, the X-Guide company is probably going to hate me for saying this, is there's so many of these devices that Nobel was like really pushing and giving them out for a while. I don't know, if like it was a few years ago, I feel like. It's like buy 100 implants, we give you this machine. And a lot of people are like, oh yeah, sure, I'll take this fancy machine for 100 implants I'm going to buy anyway. And then they had no real intention of using it. It's like, I'll occasionally use it. It is the worst possible piece of technology if you're like, I might pull it out once a month, because you're just
Hmm.
not. It's got to be core to your workflow. Otherwise, your assistants, they're not going to know what to do with it. And honestly, as a provider, you're going to get frustrated with it because there's definitely a learning curve to it. And I'd be lying if I didn't say towards the beginning, I was just like, I'm done with this. I'm just going to go back to what I've done years prior to that. But that's why pushing through that learning curve, that initial kind of getting over the hump of that, it's going to be frustration from your assistants that are. But I told them at the beginning, like, y'all have to own this process. You know what I mean? You can't call me every time you have a problem. Y'all need to own this. You need to figure out what's happening, why it's not working. And at the end of the day, like, you could end up just freehanding it if there's an issue. We don't do that with any sort of regularity, but you can. I mean, just go back to just standard freehand. But to answer your question, sorry, Jake, got off subject. There's so many of them that are just collecting dust that, like, these people are just like, I will pay you to take it. So anybody who's interested in it, talk to your reps or talk to local reps and be like, who's got one of these things that just does not use it ever? And that's exactly what I did. I did not pay a lot of money for this thing. I mean, it was a few $1,000s. And then you have to ship it. You have to get specialty shipping for it. But most of the time you could find something like probably in your area or nearby. I'm in a pretty small town. So it's like the city that was like an hour away had one, or it's like 3 hours away, but what, and I had it shipped down. I talked to the guy. I'm like, look, and if you look online, like, there are a bunch of them selling them online. I'm like, look, you're probably gonna be disappointed for like what these things are going for. And he's like, dude, I don't care. Just take it. You know what I mean? Just if I can get anything for it at this point, that's a win, because we just do not use it. So that's why I'm considering getting another one, because it's like you don't have to invest a ton in getting them. Now they have the new one, like I have the original version. You just want to watch out for, so there's basically like three versions. One of them is like the OG one that has the older computer that I did not want. And then the one I have, which is basically the middle, where it has newer hardware in terms of like computers in it, but like the camera systems and stuff is all the same. They have released the X-Guide NXT that does have some pretty cool stuff. It has, so this will be my one plug for X-Guide. You know what I mean? They won't totally hate me for saying just get them secondhand. They still probably will. This head is smaller, which is not trivial. That would be helpful. And this can do photogrammetry and they can do cool stuff. It can be your photogrammetry device. So if you're like, don't have photogrammetry and you need it, it can serve as that. I have standalone photogrammetry with Micron Mapper. But the cool thing is it can actually look at your MUA position live and say like, oh, actually, you need to change the timing on this. You can see where it is within your arch form, and you could make those little timing tweaks, at that little eighth of a turn this way, or maybe different MUA or something like that. So the newer one does have that functionality. I've got, I guess if you want to call it like the second generation or the newer hardware version of the original generation. So just watch the model year if you're looking at that. And the X-Guide team is like super helpful with it. And I talked to them and they did come out and do a training, which I had to pay for, but we did do that and they calibrated it at that time.
Nice. Does that also come with those trays you were talking about? Do you got to buy those? Are those single-use trays? Are the QR code things, do those get scratched up and you need to replace them? That kind of stuff.
So all the QR code things, which I did buy an extra set of that because like we were using it enough where I had a brand new practice originally, so one was fine, but then we're busy enough where we'd flash one and be using the other and then kind of cycle them like that. It'd be nice to have a third one. But the QR codes, I think over time, I'm sure if you autoclave them a ton, I feel like I've seen a little bit of drop in performance. One of the things you have to watch out for is, especially really and only in arches, this becomes a problem. If it gets bloody, you definitely have to like wipe it off. Like the camera won't pick it up as well. I'll just give it a quick wipe. But those are mini use until I haven't run into that issue yet. I'm sure eventually they will. The trays are single use. I definitely don't sterilize them and use them multiple times. Not even once.
Of course, of course.
Of course not. I love paying for one of them every time. And that was from a KOL. I won't name him personally, but I didn't come up with that. That's a guy who's like super advanced with using these, where I've learned a ton from him about it. And that's kind of what pushed me towards X-Guide also. because he's a rock star with it. I mean, he showed me a number of pretty advanced tricks with it that has been really helpful. But so yeah, the trays will a few times, not much, but like a little bit. And then you do pay per use, but it's per
Mm,
arch. So if you're doing 3 implants on the maxilla, let's say 3, 5, and a 14, whatever, then there's only one. Think of it like an export fee in Blue Sky.
hmm
I don't know. It's not a ton of, I think it's like $20.
It's like a digital lock that you just pay to do that case.
Yeah. So if you export it and like the implant is placed, if you don't end up, if we just export it and don't use it, then you don't get charged for it. But you basically just have to buy credits. So we have run into scenarios where because we start early, we start at like 7:30 and they don't open until 8, and we like wouldn't have a credit. So we'd have to call and wait for them to open and like buy credits. But we're a little bit better about staying ahead of that now. That was one of the early growing pains with that. That happened like a couple times. It wasn't a big deal. And then they pop them right on the machine. And I will like hats off to the X-Guide support. They're very good and they'll do like live surgeries with you. We did the training with them. They came out for it. You pay a few $1,000s for that, obviously. But the live support, they're generally pretty solid. They'll log in and get into your system. And if we don't run into it much, but invariably with stuff like this, you can run into occasional hiccups, just like with servers or Windows will update and things will break. But they handle it quickly. We really haven't had major issues with that.
There's not a ton, it doesn't sound like, but there are a couple expenses involved in using the system. Is there a code that you use that, hey, this is a guided surgery when you're using it?
There is, I don't remember it off the top of my head.
But I'm assuming that kind of goes towards those fees, right?
Yes, we charge them like it's a few $100, and that more than covers it for sure. Because I mean, we're like the fees are it's like $20 is our fees for using it. I genuinely think it's a significant value add for patients. I will tell you, they talk about it like patients are going to be going right and left. Like they don't know or care in a lot of cases, to be completely honest with you. I will say some of these kind of engineer focus, it tends to be like older guys, older male patients. They'll think it's really cool. And I'll show them, but most of the time they're in the chair and they're like, oh, just do it and get me out of here. So I won't tell you they push it as like a good sales thing. Like you're going to close more cases because I don't think that's probably the case. I think it's interesting. I mean, I bring it up, of course, during the consultations and sort of gauge their interest on it. But I certainly wouldn't get it because like this is going to get me 100 more implants a year or whatever. It's mostly just like to be able to do the workflow that I'm trying to do.
What about the scanner portion? Did that come with it, or do you have to have your own scanner?
Yeah, you have to have your own. I started with a Medit i700. I really struggled doing full arch, post-operative full arch scans with that. And then we ended up getting the Trios 6, which is as you've probably picked up from this, I try to find deals where I can. I mean, I had a new practice. I don't have any other option than trying to find some deals where I can. But I will tell you that the Trios is really good for that, and it's really fast. Now, shout out to Shining. The Shining Aoral Scan Elite was very close. So anyway, but yeah, you have to have your own scanner. You don't have to scan for these cases. We're probably doing like 80% of the clip where they just do the CT with the clip because that's really geared for like same day treatment stuff, which is a big part of what we're doing. But if there's cases where they're not, like I did a 25, the guy he had a consult came later for surgery. And so we went ahead and scanned them then. We went ahead and planned it. Everything was all ready. And so the only thing you do differently is basically you just put the clip into the mouth, and the clip has the little metal arm that has the little barrel thing on it. Now, when they're scanning for the CT, you don't have the little barrel thing on there, just to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
You just have the clip in the mouth, and it has like the little attachment for the metal arm and then barrel. And they have different if you're right, left. And so you put the clip in, and then you pick 3 points on the model. And they make it really easy. You want to pick your first point that's like going to be really easy to pick up. I'll go for things like, if they have like that indentation on a canine, a little bit of a grinder, and they have that kind of cupping defect on a canine cusp tip, something like that, or like a really clear fossa on like a premolar or something like that. And you just pick basically 3 points. You want to have enough spread. I mean, if you put them all right next to each other, it's not really going to be able to register it very well. And it gives you a score. Like it scores these 3 points. You need above a 16, preferably, if you can. And most of the time, it's pretty easy to do that. And what you can do on top of that is actually refine it. So they have this like other little device that comes with it. It's like a little point. It's like a little metal point, and it has that QR code barrel. And what you do is just like run the point over the teeth, like buccal, lingual, like all around the teeth, and you pick 3 spots for doing that. And then that'll basically like you'll have your initial 3 points. That's probably pretty close, but then you can do this refinement, and then it's like locked in, like exactly where it is, because now you're feeding it basically more and more data to get it really, really where it's like putting those surfaces together, right? So those are the kind of and we do that probably 20% of the time. Do that more with full arch, for example. Either way is the same. You're just triangulating the system to the patient.
What about time? How much added time do you estimate this is being extra to use this whole system? Once you've got it down, is it like 10 minutes, 30 minutes extra per patient compared to just freehanding it?
Initially, there is the learning curve. I won't discount that at all. But once you get it down and once you have that, it's a part of your system, I'm not convinced it adds much time at all. I mean, there's definitely some time for my time, really very negligible to like, if any time, I may be quicker. If I'm freehanding, I'm looking at it 10 different ways and it's terrible ergonomics, and I'm like probably going a lot slower. This I know with my system, I can be like boop, 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 implant in. I feel like my operative time is the same, maybe quicker. It's hard to say. I actually do measure a lot of these things. I could look back. That's a whole separate conversation, but I do measure a lot of these things. So I eventually will have that data. But honestly, I don't have enough freehand data. I've got tons of X-Guide data. I know very specifically how long it takes, but I don't have very much freehand data in terms of like operative times.
What about assistant time? Does it take them?
Yeah, I mean, like a few minutes. They have it pretty down pat. We do a lot of these with local. I'm a nitrous, and so it's a lot of times it's like you're waiting for them to get numb anyway. So it's kind of that time you're waiting for them to get numb. Or even if it's an extract immediate implant, they're kind of over on the side doing it. It takes an extra body, but I've got a floater that, usually somebody can be working on the next patient. And then usually I like to have 2 in the room with me anyway. I couldn't give you specific times with that. A bit more time, but it's not like a major time sink. There are clinical studies with that. If I'm remembering correctly, and please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, it's pretty equivalent. I mean, it's not a meaningful difference. Certainly not 30 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I would say it's probably less than that.
You mentioned you do a lot of these cases with nitrous. Does it make it hard or impossible to do this with sedation, or is it just you just got to get used to it?
No, not at all. I do them routinely with sedation. It's just,
Okay.
I just find in a lot of cases that it does allow, it's very minimally invasive. So especially if it's like a healed site, I'm just like, look, if it were me, I'm not getting sedated for this. You're going to be in and out. And X-Guide certainly says you significantly less postoperative pain. That's based off of some studies that I'm certain that they funded. But I feel like I do see that where patients, like I'll have them leave and they're like, I forgot to take any ibuprofen. And it's just fine because it is very minimal, similar to doing static. Like you're not laying big flaps and things like that. I'll still do like apical position flaps and kind of do some gingival augmentation around. But yeah.
What about patient acceptance? Because I assume you build this in and it's presented with, okay, there's a $200 fee or whatever it is because we're doing this extra navigation. Is that 90% of people just going, oh, sure, whatever, we'll take it?
I, of course, don't do the checkout, but I've not heard any issues with patient pushback with that. I feel like a lot of people, I'd say probably like 70% of people are like, whatever, all of this is kind of over my head anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of standard deer in the headlights, which I try to educate them with that. And then 30% of them are like, oh, cool, we're getting the best. So I've not had anybody said like, I'm not paying for that. You can do it freehand. No, that's never happened for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned that, I'm sure people are curious. You mentioned a couple things that can make it a little challenging, maybe some blood, maybe the arch or the comeback or whatever it is, right? Are there any other things that can happen that basically make it complicated? Maybe that little tray pops off or it's not retentive, or maybe you're drilling and you realize that it's not tuned the way you thought or whatever, stuff like that. Have you seen those happen or heard about that?
Yeah, with the tray, I mean, we've had some issues if trays are not retentive, but most of the time what you do is they sell them on Amazon. They're like little styrofoam mouth props. I remember they had them in dental school for me.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen those? They're like little.
It's like a little peanut, like a hard one, like a styrofoam.
Yeah, and it doesn't have, I know my mouth props have this kind of wings that go on either side of the tooth that kind of, it's literally
Mhm.
just like a styrofoam wedge. And so you put that on there and then have them kind of retain it with that. And sometimes I'll kind of, with one hand, I'll have to like finger rest and hold the clip into place because it's like really tiny movements, right? We're talking about really, really low level of point fractions of millimeters. So sometimes, but I actually kind of like doing that because it gives me like a finger rest. Because again, I'm kind of doing that two-hand dental school crown prep style. It is very accurate in terms of how it measures. So I'm in like a really locked in position, like ergo, shoulders in, elbows in. Like you've got to be really, really tight with your ergonomics to like make sure you're getting like that exact osteotomy position. It's not overly cumbersome, but it's got to be right. It's not just kind of that freehand where you're just like going for it. I mean, that's a scenario. Worst case scenario, you redo your tray basically, and then you just pick your points, and then you basically could just start over. I don't run into that scenario much. Like a little pearl for using it is when you come out with the tray, I'll take like a rongeur and just take out those little tips of PVS material. If anybody's done dual scan stuff, you'll know what I'm talking about, where it's too tight between the teeth and those little triangles of material can break off and the tray won't seat exactly right.
Mm.
I mean, it's like you can feel it because it'll like you can feel it. You're positioning it. It's a little tedious to position sometimes, but you get it just right and it pops into place. You can like feel those undercuts. And if it kind of just it's a little wonky going in, you know something's not quite right. You can take it off. The most common thing is I'll get like a little tip, a little piece of material that gets onto like a occlusal surface. I'll take that out, pop it right back in, and you can feel it go right back in. Other headaches with it, wiping it off. If I'm doing like a just finish the upper, I'm now doing the lower. It's still kind of bloody. I'm like using it up and down, just cleaning it off if the camera's not getting it quite right. You have to get a bit creative with camera positioning, but that's just kind of a skill of using it. And just the initial learning curve of it was funny because the trainer was at the end of it. And Jake, you'll love this because she's like, "Do you play video games?" And I'm like, "I do play video games." And she's like, "I can tell." And I'm like, "I don't know if I'm offended or should be flattered." She's like, "No, it's a good thing." I mean, I've definitely had surgeons where they just couldn't, you're controlling something on the screen and it is just that kind of weird spatial awareness thing.
Because you're not looking at it, you're feeling something in a different area, but you're looking at the screen. It's a good disconnect there.
Yes. So there's that disconnect, maybe doing on the, she said in the upper left, people struggle with it the most. Like I just haven't had, and you have to watch your arms so you're not covering the camera and the assistant's not covering the QR codes of the camera and stuff like that. There's little minor things with just things that you get used to. It's all kind of minor nuisances. But I think there's enough value there. We did enough to get a plaque sent to us from X-Guide saying, I think that's just we bought enough of these export credits. So
That's
they
awesome.
sent us a plaque. I'm trying to think of other things. Arches can be, arches is definitely the next doing full arch cases with it. That can get trickier. I'll say that. There's definitely, like I plan every case and like I have like whole step sequences of, okay, this for every case is, I mean, obviously there's a fair amount of overlap, but every case is a little bit unique. Am I going to screw it in? Am I going to try use it? You usually can't use a tray with an arch unless you're going to do part of it. One trick is you can do an anterior implant. And then I actually got like a special, the guy who taught me a lot of these things made a special attachment for the implant that's on a tie base. That's like one of those clip arms that you can put it on there. I know we're kind of getting into the weeds in
Mm.
terms of like using it for that, but arches can get a little tricky in terms of planning around that. I use it for all of my arches because like I know I can be like right on the sinus. And that's one of the scenarios where I'm looking at that cross section. I'm right on the sinus. I'm like, perfect. My AP spread is, I mean, I've done lots of arches. I mean, I worked at Arch Center for a while, freehand, and just to see where I can get, you always cheat a little bit anterior, right? I'm not trying to bag a nerve. I'm not trying to put it straight in their sinus. I can't really see. You can approximate it. You can't really exactly see. And just like seeing the AP spread I get on these, it's coming out first molar when a lot of cases I know it would be second premolar.
Hmm.
I mean, it might seem trivial, but I care about these things probably too much. But I can basically eliminate cantilevers entirely and doing like posterior implants. I'm like, I know exactly where the nerve is, in the mandible, things like that. So I like it for that. It's not without its extra steps. But I mean, the same be said for like a static guide for doing arches. So I'm trying to think of any other nuisances from it.
In terms of the workflow, I think you give a really good layout for what a nice, well-polished workflow would look like. I mean, if you were doing static right now, the most efficient way would be scan it, plan it. Most people send it to a lab to then plan the guide, and then they send them back a file to print. And then you print it, bring the patient back, and then use it, or just have them wait. Whereas this, it essentially eliminates a lot of those steps. You just scan them while they're basically doing paperwork and stuff. You plan it, and then the patient's getting ready to go with your assistants, and you just do it.
Yeah. And most time they're checking out because we're big on like, that's a big part of the qualifiers. All their paperwork squared away, everything. They have full expectations and like all their paperwork, everything's dialed in. So when they come in, they're ready to rock and roll. But yeah, so most of the time it's like with their checkout. But I mean, that's why I had to have something like that to be able to achieve that. Or like you have to just say, okay, I have to do it freehand. And honestly, like with a new practice, my margin for error is like zero, right? I mean, like I'm known to the community, but if you're the new guy, I've got zero margin for error. If it's my first implant for doing for somebody, it has to be perfect. I have either that or they're probably not going to send anybody else.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that was a big part of it. Like I want it to be convenient and fast, but then it's also got to be, I've got no margin of error. It has to be perfect. And that's ultimately where it was like I hadn't had any experience really doing it before doing this. And I'm like, we're going to try it. We're going to try. Maybe it doesn't land. Maybe we end up doing something else. Maybe I get a fast printer or something like that. I have an in-house designer that can design on the fly, or I can do it, or somebody's remote. But so I can do those things quickly. But like by the time you like print and you wash it and you cure it, it's just too much time.
Well, it's nice to hear that you've been able to adapt to that, use it, that's being successful. I think it's just like a lot of other things. When I talked to you, and we could probably do a whole other podcast about this, but when I started using the ergo loops, at first it was pretty disorienting because you're not
Yeah.
looking where you used to look. You're not seeing the things you're normally seeing with your peripheral. But then after a short period of time, it's like, I love these things. I
Yeah.
have to use these things. Like, how was I not using this? It makes a lot of sense, just like you said, that if you're only using it here and there, you're not going to get into that flow. And so that's probably why a lot of people just aren't using them, even when they have them, as much as they really could. But if you commit to using it and making that part of your workflow, it sounds like it could be a really huge asset.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ergo loop comparison is very, very similar. I'm like such a big fan of ergo loops. I agree with you. I mean, I push you to do it, but it's true. I mean, if you can commit, it's really an awesome asset to the practice. I think there's a lot of value adds in a lot of different places. Honestly, ergonomics alone, I would use it for that. But I think there's a number of things it adds, just the accuracy, there is some level of it helping potentially close cases. But if you don't commit to it and make your team commit to it, that's a big part of it. I mean, like you have to get your team to buy in and commit to it, which is probably going to be that's where I probably got and I've got an amazing team, tremendous team, but they'll get frustrated because they've been used to doing things a certain way. And then this will be a deviation from that. But you're exactly right. Because a lot of these people, and that's why you can get them really cheap, because a lot of people, they're just really expensive coat hangers and they're not little, I mean, they're taking up space. I mean, they're not huge, but I mean, it's not a little device. It's not, you don't throw it in a cabinet somewhere. It's a big guy.
Well, thank you for running through that. I think that'll be a great resource. I mean, if we have guests or listeners who have further questions, are you okay if we put your contact info in the show notes?
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. And you can also come down to sunny St. Simon's Island, Georgia, and you can come hang out and see it. You can book a room at Sea Island. You can put it on, Jake will pay for it.
Yeah, I think it's due time I do that. This is sounding great.
And come hang out with us and see it in action. But yeah, I love talking about, I mean, all this stuff. I love talking about it. So please do not hesitate. I know my email and cell will be in the show notes and everything like that. Call me, text me, or email me or whatever.
Fantastic. Last question for you. Have you read any good books lately?
I've been so down the AI rabbit hole that I'm just like, okay, here it is. Here's the book. Because most time I just like constant AI podcasts and stuff like that. It's cutting into your listen time a little bit, Grant, but I'm dedicated.
Yes.
But if anyone builds it, everyone dies.
Okay.
If anyone builds it, everyone dies. Very interesting. It's from like an OG AI machine learning scientist who's very convinced that just like in any scenario, if we build AGI, it will be the end of humanity. And now I'm an optimist personally. I think it will lift us up, but I'm an eternal optimist. Jake knows that. And it might not be my best quality, but it's a very interesting book it's like Yadowski, I think is the author, but very, very interesting read.
Yeah.
Yudowski.
It sounds like it might be really good for the people who aren't already like paranoid about AI.
If you're already
Right.
paranoid about AI, this is going to like keep you up at night.
Push you over the edge.
But a very interesting, and it's not like just some Joe Schmo. I mean, this guy's like from grassroots, well before anything we're doing now. He started this 2 decades ago, but very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Well, good. Thank you, Dexter. You're always a champion of the podcast, and we love that you're always divulging all your secrets and everything. You're a team player, man. We appreciate that.
No, for sure. I love it. I mean, I get so much value from the podcast. I do want to correct Dr. Genzer on a few points. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. I say it all the time. It's such a cool thing you do. I love doing it. And now we have Jake as our dual resident techies for the podcast.
Yes, that's right.
Jake and I can be constantly talking about AI this and, all sorts of different stuff. So
the frontier of OMFS.
yes, exactly. Frontier models, frontier oral surgery, for sure.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys and your time, and let's keep making great content.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Have a good one, guys.
All right.
Okay, talk to you later.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Everyday Oral Surgery. For more information on these podcasts, please visit everydayoralsurgery.com. I love feedback and would be very grateful if you would reach out to me via my email, grantstucki@gmail.com, and let me know what you thought of this episode. Or you can text me at 720-441-6059. Additionally, if you have any topics you'd like to hear about, or if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, please email or text me. I found many of my interviewees through people who have been contacting me and have been listening, and I've gotten so many great ideas for more podcasts, and that's what helps keep the podcast rolling. So really appreciate you making that extra effort and helping me out with feedback and knowing what to do next on the podcast. Thank you so much.